Hello there. Welcome to Underlords Universe. This is a forum where we discuss things like music, books, film. Today we're doing the second episode in a Queensryche series where we're going to be discussing four records. We're going to be talking about Promised Land, Here in the Now Frontier, Q2K, and Tribe. This is kind of like I don't know. I look at these records and it's kind of like the Brown album period. They're all brown.
Yeah, yeah, brownish green, I suppose. Q2K is like a computer chip. Boy, there's a lot of glare on that today.
You can see your coffee cup. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You
this is gonna
know,
be this is gonna be an interesting discussion today. And before we get into it, let's just
hmm
talk. Let's talk a little bit about the system that we have. It's a relatively simple system.
Yeah.
We go
Hang
through a
on.
record. We go through a record and we listen to every song. We don't do this from memory. We actually go back and revisit these records. Listen to every song as we go through. We just kind of give every song 0 to 5 points or 5 stars, if you will. And then we just kind of accumulate the number over the course of the record. If you have a record of 10 songs, it can be worth up to 50 points. If you have a total of 40, that's 80%. So it's a pretty good record. And we just do that for all these records, and we kind of talk about the high points and the low points on the records and things like production and maybe
Yep.
some surprises along the way. So with that as kind of an intro, do you want to
hmm
just dig anything else to add to the what
Yeah,
we got going?
yeah, I would just add that first of all, I'm fighting a cold, so I've got
Oh,
my Hall's vitamin
ah,
C. I don't have much drip going on, but I do have Kleenex in case, and I've got some tea going.
oh, that's a fantastic cut, by the way.
Yeah.
It's cold here, people. The wind chill yesterday was about 15 below zero. It's
Well,
cold.
here's cold.
You need your
So
vitamin.
so yeah, the system, yeah, the thing I like about our system that it ain't perfect. Get that? No system is perfect when you're trying to quantify the qualitative. And art, it's all about the quality. But we all have different ears, we all hear things differently. But we like the system because sometimes it creates surprises. It's like, I think this album's going to outrank that album, but crunch the numbers, we'll find out.
I had a lot of surprises here. I'm not gonna lie. This is a really interesting experience for me, which I think
Yeah.
is part of the reason why I love doing this.
Yeah.
It's
Well, the other thing I want to add into this is that obviously we're doing their um, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth albums, uh, full-length albums. And this is, as Brent said, this is part two of a series on this. And we are, I think, going to do part three, which would be what Operation Mindcrime 2, followed by what in the world follows Operation Mindcrime 2?
let's see.
Why am I drawing a brain fart here, folks? Um, huh. Oh my gosh, we're losing all credibility with our tiny audience, folks.
We are. Well,
American Soldier. American Soldier.
yes.
Yeah, I was like, I wanted to make sure I said it chronologically correctly. Yeah, Operation Mindcrime 2, American Soldier, then Dedicated to Chaos, and then we're actually gonna do the Queensryche album that many people refer to as Jeff Tate's Queensryche, Frequency Unknown. Part four would be all of the Todd La Torre Queensryche albums, which would be the
Mhm.
self-titled Condition Human, the Verdict and Digital Noise Alliance, and then we'll do a concluding episode where we end up finding out where all of the albums rank in total. So yeah, yeah, yeah. But Brent, as you said, we like to just kind of discuss each album, highs and low points and stuff, and then at the end, do our ranking. In this case, the ranking of these four albums. So yeah, okay. So you want to get started?
Yeah. So let's dig into Promised Land. So when this album came out in '94, it had
Mhm.
been what a few years since Empire. And so, what were your initial impressions when
Well,
this record? Because Empire was a huge commercial hit for them. You could argue that that was their zenith, their apex as far as their popularity,
hmm
sales, concert wise. They were really on fire. Promised Land comes around a few years later. What were your initial impressions when Promised Land came out?
well, first of all, I remember because I saw Queensryche on the Empire tour, where of course they also played Operation Mindcrime in its entirety. So yeah, they're riding a high. I specifically remember the kind of the reaction generally to Promised Land was not my reaction to Promised Land.
Mhm.
It's dark, it's moody, you know, it's quite different from Empire in that regard. It I think it sold well initially because of the kind of riding Empire's coattails, but it did not have the kind of reception ultimately that Empire did commercially. And I think the tour, I think attendance was down as well. But for me, I liked it because I liked dark, moody music. And so I thought it was great at the time. The question is, it's been a long time. Has it held up? How has it held up? But yeah, I was quite on board with Promised Land when it came out. You?
Yeah, yeah, same. Well, they could have kept doing what they did with Empire. You could argue this is a very big shift from Empire. I mean, Empire was for them. Empire was probably their most commercial release. There are parts of this record which are very catchy and very easily accessible, not acceptable, accessible and acceptable. But it's kind of getting a little bit back into some of the proggy stuff with the title track, for example. Um, you have the intro piece, 9:28 a.m.
hmm
I Am I is kind of a weird song.
Yeah,
So
all the sitar stuff in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Bridge is kind of a maybe a throwback or harkens back to. It's not like Silent Lucidity Part Two, but it kind of has some of that feel to it. So it's them not reinventing themselves, but they're kind of going down a different path, which I think is really cool for a band that had just had a lot of commercial success with their previous record. And I'm with you. I think it's great that it's a nice dark record, sounds great. They're doing some new and different things, so it's refreshing in that regard.
Yeah, I think that what's interesting about Promised Land is, any band could have easily said, "Wow, we really hit, you know, that kind of sweet spot commercially. We got to keep that momentum going." And they were just like, "No, I think at one point I saw an interview with Michael Wilton, and he wasn't talking about this album specifically, but he was saying that all of the guys in that band got into doing what they were doing because they loved music and they just wanted to explore making music, and it wasn't necessarily about um, you know, being the biggest band in the world or anything like that. So, or any of the stuff that goes along with that. So they kind of seem to follow their path on this. I did see a little bit of a behind the scenes thing about making this record, and it does also appear that a lot of the guys came into making this record with a lot of different views about what it should be. And, sometimes that can be really difficult on a band, because it can pull a band in so many different directions. In this case, I think it created a really interesting balance of songs. And, you can hear different influences from song to song, but I think it all works pretty well, not really well, actually, as a cohesive album. So, so yeah. So do you want to hit like high points, low points for you and me?
Yeah, why don't you tell me what some of your favorite songs on the record are? If you have any low points, I really don't, but
Okay, that's okay. So the hard part about this album for me, excuse me, is to me it's actually high point after high point after high point. Now the question then becomes how high, you know? Because you can have an album that's consistently at like 3.5 out of 5 or consistently 4 out of 5. Um the lowest ranked track for me on this record, so I'm going to start with the low points,
Mhm. Mhm.
is actually 9:28 a.m., not because it's bad or anything, It serves its purpose. It's cool. It's atmospheric. It kind of sets the stage for IMI, but I give that a 3. That is the lowest score for me on this record. As far as proper songs, the lowest score is a 3.5, and I gave that to Disconnected and One More Time. Um, and that's partly because pretty I'm pretty stodgy with giving out my fives. Um,
Yeah.
that said, I have a few fives on this, and I have a couple 4.5s.
Okay, let's hear them.
So to me, IMI 4.5, Damaged 5, Out of Mind 5, Bridge 5, the title track 4.5, My Global Mind 5. And on certain days, I might even score a couple of those even higher. And I actually gave Someone Else and Lady Jane 4s.
Okay.
I really like this record. I've always really liked Promised Land, and so years later, revisiting it again, I pull it out every once in a while and listen to it. But the I haven't for a couple years, I don't think. And it's like, okay, it's like, is this, I'm officially cranking out the numbers on this, right? And it's like, does it hold up the way and it's like, yeah, I really like this record. Always have.
Yeah, you really do. I can't say that I don't. I mean, I can't say that I don't like it as much as you do. We just kind of rate things differently. We have our own internal, whatever. Just
Yeah.
kind of, as long as you're consistent, it really works. For me, I only had one 5-star song, but I agree. It's My Global Mind, which is my favorite song on the record. I think that song is just
Okay,
um,
so out of curiosity, what did you give Damaged?
4.
Okay, Out of Mind.
um, 3.5,
Okay. Bridge.
4,
IMI.
3.5.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, how about the title track? Which
4.
okay.
Now, before I listened to the record, I thought I was going to give Bridge and Promised Land both 5s, but it didn't happen. But they're both really, really, really good songs. And the other 4-star song for me on the record is Disconnected. I really like Disconnected a lot.
Yeah, I really like it too. I
It's
guess
weird. It is so the verses are so bizarre. It's just
yeah.
vocal delivery, and it's just kind of murky and dark and weird. And then the chorus is just not this. The chorus and the verses are so dissimilar, but it
Mhm.
just makes for a very interesting, weird, bizarre, dark piece, which I really like. Which they never really did anything like that before. So this album was very adventurous for them, I think, from a creative standpoint, which is why one of the reasons why I think both of us like it as much as we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Um I'm actually kind of surprised that you didn't rate that you rated Out of Mind and Bridge and Damaged lower than I did.
I am too.
But that's also why we have these discussions, because it's like, I'll excuse me, I'll listen to something and I'll be like, oh yeah, Brent's going to give that a 5, and it's like, then it turns out not necessarily to be the case.
I
Again,
thought,
not to say you don't like something, it's just
yeah, well, like I said before I listened to the record again, I pretty much had Bridge and Promised Land penciled in as 5s, and I got through them. I was like, no, not 5, but they're 4. Isn't there's saxophone on Promised Land too? Isn't there?
yeah, that's Jeff Tate playing it.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Um, yeah, and also just as a side note, the Someone Else, which of course is just piano, that's Chris DeGarmo on piano, with Jeff singing, of course. There is a full band version of that song, and it's it's equally as good, but it just has such a different feel to it because it's a full band, and it just, I think, listening to the full band version of Someone Else compared to the album version is just it's an interesting thing to do. So,
Well,
um,
we made a comment on the last show that we did about how we thought Empire was like the best sounding Queensryche record up to that
at
point in
that
there.
point, yeah,
How would you compare how Promised Land sounds, the production
I
values?
I think it's really close. I think that Empire edges it out sonically a little bit, but I mean, I'm splitting hairs there.
Yeah, Empire's got a little bit more of a polished sound. Promised Land is a little bit grittier, maybe a little bit darker, maybe a little bit heavier, but
Yeah.
equally
It's
accessible.
it's um it's produced by Queensryche with James Barton, and I also wanted to point out it's on this album, Michael Wilton's writing contributions drop significantly. He only co-writes on 2 tracks. DeGarmo has 9 tracks on this record. And what's interesting about that to me is, a lot of people for years, for decades now, people have been saying, "Oh, you got to bring DeGarmo back. You got to bring DeGarmo back." I mean, without DeGarmo, Queensryche, blah, 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 all that stuff. And it's like, okay. I mean, I like Chris DeGarmo a lot. I mean, he's great. But what's interesting though is that Promised Land didn't, it kind of fell flat with a lot of people, including, I'm assuming, a lot of Queensryche fans. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, he wrote a lot of it, and Michael Wilton wrote less than he usually does. So, you know,
Yeah, and of course, the musical landscape was changing in the mid '90s. Things were
oh yeah.
changing in the rock scene, so maybe that was also part of it. But I think you and I would agree that in terms of just the quality of this release, if people aren't familiar with Promised Land, you should check it out. It's a really good record.
I people are different. So a lot of people that have listened to it, and my guess is if you're watching this, you've heard it. You already have your opinion about it, but yeah, be curious to see if anybody thinks that we're completely off base with this. But I've always really liked Promised Land, and um, the question is where does it fall? Where does it rank? And in this episode, we'll see where it ranks as it relates to the next 3. And in our culminating episode on this, we'll see where it ranks in the entire Queensryche catalog. So, you mentioned the '90s, of course, um, which it's a good opportunity for a segue. But before we do that, is there any other track that you said you gave My Global Mind was the only 5, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. What about that? I mean, why does that?
Oh man, it's just
Because to
the
me,
intro.
that song is, I give it a 5 too, but to me it's on par with a lot of the other songs. So what about it, edges out the other tracks for you?
The intro is so cool. I love the vocal melody. It's one of the fewer upbeat songs on the record in
Mhm.
terms of not only just the music, whether it's in a major or minor key. It's more of a, I don't know. It's a very catchy, hooky song. It's kind of harkens back to maybe something off of Empire, which isn't necessarily why it's my favorite song on the record. It packs a really good sonic punch. Musically, I find it very interesting, and I really really like the vocal melody, especially
Yeah.
during the. I think his vocals all throughout the record are fantastic, but that's kind of one of a few of the reasons why that would be my favorite track on the record and why I gave it a 5 star
Yeah.
rating.
To me, I mean, I agree with everything you said there, but I just, I also think songs like Out of Mind and Bridge, and lyrically, how the
Yeah.
lyrics in those songs match the mood and the feel of those songs, I think is just absolutely stunning. Um,
Out of mind. I almost gave that a higher rating, and I struggled with that because that song it's so somber, so unique, so dark.
yeah,
Um, I almost gave it a 4, and on any given day I probably could, which is a good opportunity to say that if I were to rate this record next week, the results might be a little bit different.
yeah,
So
yeah. Um, and the riff, you mentioned the opening riff in My Global Mind. The riff in Damaged is just a monster. That
yeah,
to me, that is just that riff is a hook unto itself to me. So,
yeah,
but unlike My Global Mind, it's very dark, very very minor keys. So yeah.
yeah.
But like you said, they're into the '90s here, and the musical landscape is changing just drastically. So, um, segue to Here in the Now Frontier.
Yeah.
Okay, so Here in the Now Frontier has like what 14 tracks on it, I think.
14.
It's kind of the same thing, like Kisses Hot in the Shade was like the same thing. It's almost that issue of, are there too many songs?
Yeah.
And I'm always kind of the frame of mind that I'd always rather have more than less. But having said that, I do think there's also something to be said for a an album, both in terms of its length and its sequence and the songs that work well together as a package. And what I would have preferred would be honestly like a trimmed down um, album with maybe a second disc with some bonus tracks or something, additional songs, like bonus tracks separate. Like, hey, these aren't part of the proper album. Just I think that would have just psychologically made me view the album a little differently. But
Mhm, mhm.
um, also, a couple other things about Here in the Now Frontier is this is really DeGarmo driven.
Yeah.
I mean, this album is really kind of his vision. And so again, when people say stuff like, "Oh my gosh, without Chris DeGarmo," it's kind of like trying to prove a negative, It's like, well, he's not there. He's not contributing right now. So it's like if he was, how do you know that what he would contribute is stuff that you'd like? We don't know. Maybe it would be, but maybe it wouldn't. What we do know is that for a lot of people on Promised Land, not me, but for a lot of people on Promised Land, and for a lot of people on Here in the Now Frontier, they just don't like it. And it's like, well, Chris DeGarmo's driving those records, especially this one in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, Having said that, one of my biggest problems with the album is the mix on it and the production, which is strange because it's Peter Collins.
Mhm.
He produced Empire, he
Yeah.
produced Mindcrime. Um, he produced Rush's Hold Your Fire and Power Windows, he produced Indigo Girls, Rite of Passage. It's like the guy's good. He knows how to make a really lush album. So this one though, I going from Promised Land to Here in the Now Frontier, because I did listen to them back to back, it just sonically just shrunk. And it was like, where is the snare drum? Like, oh my God, that snare just it's like it's just absent, you know? That's not to say that all the songs are bad though,
Right. Right.
They're just kind of going for that kind of that just that drier,
Yeah.
flatter kind of sound,
Would
not
you
musically
say,
flat, of course, but
would you
sonically.
say it's a bit mid-rangey, a
Yeah.
little bit?
Yeah. It's hard for me to see my copy.
It's not a bad production, but it's not as big and bold as Promised Land.
No. I mean, and here's the one thing I'll say about it. It's not like it's a mistake. It's not like they
No.
couldn't do. It's like that's what they were going for. So if you say, well, that's what you're aiming for, they achieved it. Okay. The question then becomes, to what extent do I like it? Right?
And ultimately, that's whether the songs are good or not. I mean, you and I agree that a good production, you're probably inclined to like the songs maybe a little bit better. But at the end of the day, a
I
good
don't know
song,
about I
maybe in some cases, but at the end of the day,
yeah, maybe.
a good song is usually a good song regardless of whether or not it has a very lush production or a very dry. A riff's a good
Yeah.
riff,
I
you know.
think I think what can happen though is a well-produced song creates accessibility for the listener
Oh,
because
sure.
you know most listeners, most of us aren't going to listen to a song and say, well, aside from the way the guitars sound and aside from the way it's mixed and aside from the panning of the backing vocals or whatever, most of us aren't going to do that, right? We're just going to take it for what it is and go, I either like it or I don't, you know. Um, Having said that, I don't hate this record at all.
Well,
Um, some people do, but I do think overall it starts off. I would say there's a flow to this in terms of I think it starts off decent.
mhm,
I think it drops, and then I
mhm.
think it ends stronger. I think the strongest part of the album is the latter part of the record. And if you're trying to listen to this album 14 songs straight through, by the time you get to the better parts of it, you might be kind of tired of it. And you might be like, you know what, I'm just gonna
Maybe.
listen to something else.
Yeah.
Um, so with that being said, I've kind of hinted at what I think are the strongest and weakest tracks. If you had to point to the strongest tracks, what would you say they are?
Well, I have 8 4-star songs on this record.
Holy, you're
Eight.
kidding me.
No. And it's funny that you talked about starting strong and ending strong because as I look at my notes and
I
my
said I did not say that.
well, starting
I
stronger.
No, I said starting decent.
Okay.
There's
But
a big difference between decent and strong.
my notes reflect that I agree with that. That's funny.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
interesting.
Fair
But
enough.
for I'll use the word strong. So here I'll give you. I have no 5-star songs on this record. And when this record came out, I was a little underwhelmed with it. Now we're going back in time, what 29 years now. So
Yeah.
it's.
Okay.
I remember thinking it's a little bit bloated. There's a lot of tracks here. There's a lot of stuff to absorb. I didn't at times. I don't think it sounds like a very cohesive record. Like maybe you're shoehorning this in here and this in there. Maybe if they'd made it an 11 song record and maybe
Mhm.
had some bonus tracks, maybe I would view it differently. But it is what it is. And I had 8 4-star songs, and those are as follows. And this
Okay.
is one of my surprises with these 4 records. I did not anticipate this.
All right.
Sign of the Times,
No.
Cuckoo's Nest,
No.
Get a Life,
No.
The Voice Inside,
No.
Miles Away, Reach, which has maybe the best riff on the record. And I think
Okay.
Michael Wilson wrote Reach, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken.
Yep. I think you're right.
Hit the Black,
Yep.
and Anytime, Anywhere. I gave
Okay.
all those songs 4 stars. If I had to pick a favorite, it's
Yep.
Reach. It's Reach.
Okay. Now, it's funny you heard me kind of like no, no, right?
You're,
Um,
you're, you're entitled to be wrong every once in a while.
yeah, I am. You as well. But so here's the thing. I actually don't dislike those songs at the beginning of the album. I like them just fine. I can listen to them. I think they're decent songs. I gave them threes.
That's cool.
To me, a three is to me, I always think, and I think you and I have kind of a different like midpoint kind of
Mhm.
concept. For me, a two and a half is like it's just there. It's kind of like, yeah, it's a song. There's nothing offensive about it. Nothing that like it's just there. Um,
Mhm.
to me, a three is like it's better than there. It's better than just a song that's just sitting there.
Mhm.
So I like Sign of the Times and Cuckoo's Nest. I think of those first 4 songs that open the album, I think Cuckoo's Nest is actually the best of the four. But I gave those all three points. Um,
Here's a so I'm sorry to interrupt, but here's a question because I've never asked you this. I don't think so. I believe "Sign of the Times" was the first single off the record.
yeah, I think it was.
When that came out, what was your initial reaction to "Sign of the Times"? Because it's
Well,
kind of it's kind of emblematic about the rest of the album. Kind of would follow suit. It's not a straight. It's not a diversion from what the rest of the record really is. It's kind of
okay.
emblematic of the.
So
What were your initial
I
thoughts?
first of all, this came out. I had to listen to your copy of it because I had so little money that I didn't really listen to. I didn't have a copy to listen to.
Oh,
So,
okay.
whenever I would listen to it, I'd listen to your copy for a while.
Uh-huh.
Um, so, but what I can what I, the best way I could describe it is, we felt the musical changes happening in the 90s, and Queensryche was clearly reflecting some of those changes. And having kind of, grown up listening to bands that you know changed over time, it wasn't it didn't bother me too much. I didn't like it as much as Promised Land or Empire or Mindcrime, but I just kind of accepted it for what it was. And it was like, okay, I may not like Sign of the Times as much as I like, Speak.
Right.
Um, but it's not, but I was like, it's not like it's a bad song or anything. It was just like, okay, a little different.
Okay.
Now, I think when you get into Some People Fly, like if you said like maybe an 11 song album would have been more digestible.
Yeah.
I gave like I would have cut Some People Fly, Saved, and Hero.
Yep. I marked those exactly.
Oh,
I marked the same songs.
yep. I gave Some People Fly and Saved. I gave those 2.5. To me, those are just like, there's there.
And for me, I
Hero,
just
I actually gave Hero a 2. It's like it's just it just too much on the boring scale to me. Now I did actually give one of these songs a higher rating than you did, though.
Oh, okay.
You want to take a guess which one?
Um, of the ones we've already talked about, or just any of
Any
these?
of
Any of
them.
these?
Any of them.
Um,
Time for a vitamin
uh,
C drop.
I'm gonna say that you gave a higher score than I did to Miles Away.
Yep. I gave that a 4.5, and I think if had it been produced with a more lush production, I
Hmm.
might have given it a 5. I think that the vocal harmonies and the melody in the chorus to Miles Away is fabulous. I think it's an outstanding song. So I
Yeah,
give it a four and a half.
I gave it a four, and it is one of the better songs on the record. Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to me because there are so many times in any given week where I just say to myself, just please leave me alone on this day. I'm in conversation miles away.
Yeah.
Please leave
Yeah.
me alone this afternoon, especially in my job where I have to deal with, you know,
Yeah.
so many
But
people.
you're right about the vocals and the chorus and everything. And I'm not normally a lyric guy. I'm more of a melody guy, but that is a fantastic vocal in the chorus.
Yeah. I
And
also,
overall production of the record, like we talked about, it's not as big as Promised Land, but it's not bad. It's a good, solid, slick rock production,
Mhm.
and it works for the tracks.
I think the song Anytime, Anywhere
Hmm.
I gave that a 4. I think that's an outlier because it's heavy
Yep.
and it's riffy, and there's really nothing else on the. I mean, Reach to an extent, Reach has a decent, good riff in it and stuff. But and Hit the Black,
Hmm.
but it's like now there's a little bit of gas in the tank there, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like I think the sequencing of the album is a little weird. I would have cut those other three songs and made those like bonus tracks or something. I gave Spool a 3, although I think it's kind of interesting.
Weird. I gave it 3.5. It's a weird song.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I honestly I could see giving it a 3.5, but I gave it a 3 at the time. But I can tell you this, based on the rankings of these four albums, if I gave it another half point, it wouldn't have changed the ranking. So,
Interesting because if I were to do that, these rankings would change. They're very close.
well,
Very close. And
there's
we'll get it.
we'll get into that. I'm just saying between this one and the next and the one that outranked it, there's too much space between those two. Between this one and the one that ranks right behind it, that's really, really narrow for me.
Okay. Well, do you want to move into anything else you want to say about this? You want to move into Q2K?
No, let's go ahead and move into Q2K, which
So
I think the
this
cover, I've always loved the cover of that.
yeah, yeah, the cover is cool. And at this point, Chris DeGarmo is gone,
Right. Now, having said that, though,
and Kelly Gray's in the band.
first of all, Kelly Gray played in Myth, which was Jeff Tate's band prior to him joining what became Queensryche.
Hmm.
Couple things I want to say about that. This set of four albums, even though DeGarmo is not in the band on this one, he does come back and write and record on Tribe. So it's kind of like these four albums is like DeGarmo's like swan song.
Hmm.
And as you said, Kelly Gray comes in. Now, all of the songs on this album are credited to just Queensryche. So we don't know to what extent they're really band compositions or not. It's hard to know. Um, we also saw them on this tour because they opened the show with Rob Halford as special guest and then Iron Maiden on the Brave New World tour. And we saw that in Bonner Springs, Kansas, uh, at the amphitheater down there.
Yes.
And they were good, but they
Yeah.
were not as memorable. Halford was memorable. Oh my God. And of course,
Yes.
Maiden, right on the Brave New World tour. So great billing, but certainly, yeah. As far as the album, I don't think it lives up to the cover.
No.
Um, I think it starts off a little stronger uh, from an opening song standpoint than Here in the Now Frontier does.
Okay.
Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, I think that Falling Down is this. Did I give that the highest score? Let me see here. The highest score I gave to this was to the opening track, to Falling Down. So if I had to say I had a like one favorite song on this record, it probably would be Falling Down.
So you would say that the record kind of fell down after falling down.
Yeah, the album falls down after Falling Down. Having said that, there there's some songs on here that are okay.
What did you give falling down? If it was the high point of the record for you, what did you give it? Can I?
3.5.
Oh, that okay. All right. So actually, the highest score I gave was four, and I gave that to two songs. But
Okay.
everything's three and a 3.5. So we agree that it's pretty consistent in terms of there's not really anything that just reaches out and grabs you by the throat, and you want to go back and hit replay and replay and replay.
No.
Not to say that there's not anything good on the. I would say this record has some good songs and
Hmm.
some good moments, but nothing is great. It's missing that really really good song.
What's the lowest score you gave on Q2K?
Three. And for
Really?
me, yeah, and for me, a three is like your 2.5. A three is like it's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's like for any potential viewer out there, we have our own sense of what a 2.5 or a 3 or a 5 is and stuff. So um
For
I
me,
yeah,
Brian, for me to give a song less than a three, there has to be something about it that I don't like.
and that's how I feel. That's how I feel about something less than a 2.5.
So there we go.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff on this record that's passable.
Having said that though, sometimes there might be like something in a song I don't like, but the rest of the song is so great that I give it more than a 3. It just depends, Like
Let
we
me
said
tell
like we said at the beginning, we're trying to quantify qualitative stuff. It's
yeah,
not like there's no perfect way to do this.
let me tell you what my two favorite songs on the record are.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
my favorite two songs, One Life. I love the chorus in One Life. I love the vocal in that. I give that a four, and I love Breakdown. I gave that a four. Breakdown is a really good song in my opinion.
Here's my note for breakdown.
Oh
Meh.
boy. Oh come on, man. All right.
Yeah.
So you gave it a three, right?
No, I give it a 2.5.
Okay. That's interesting. So one of your least favorite tracks on the record is one of my favorites, and that doesn't happen very often, really.
But now, you know what I want to do?
But
I want to put the disc on and listen to breakdown so I can kind of go, well, is Brent hearing something that I'm not hearing? That because that's the thing this is why I think we like to constantly talk about music because it's one thing when we agree, that's fine, but I think it's actually more interesting when we disagree because it makes me at least kind of go, let me go revisit that.
well, and same when you because you will sometimes point out very nuanced things, a very specific thing in a piece that maybe I don't pick up on, and I'm going to want to go back and say, oh yeah, now I hear what he's hearing because I've always said that you can hear music or you can listen to music, and it's
Hmm.
two different. And I'm not always an active listener. I mean, I might have something on in the background and be doing something else or multitasking. But when I'm
Oh yeah.
doing, I try to just dial in to what I'm listening to. And sometimes you'll pick up on something, and I'll make a little note in my notebook. Like you mentioned something about a snare sound, or he's doing this with the ride cymbal in the
Mm.
chorus on this or whatever. And I'm going to go back and check it out for that very reason. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like yeah, right. Um, so it's funny, I like thinking about the song One Life.
Yeah.
I gave it a 3, which to me is a little higher than your 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Since like I do like the song. Um, my note says goofy vocal part before the solo, which is also goofy. Like I don't really like that section that goes into the solo. I do think that it has some moments on it that are really good though. I do think it's a quality song, and I could have probably given One Life 3.5.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think Sacred Ground is a decent song. I could have maybe given that a 3.5. Um,
Yeah, I could have too. I gave it a three. I agree with you.
I do think Falling Down is actually a pretty strong opening song. That down down. I think it's cool. I like that.
I gave it
If I were
I
to
gave it I gave it a 3.5.
okay. I here's I when the rain comes, I put boring. Beside you, boring.
Mhm.
Even Burning Man, my note says it's fine, but it's nothing special.
Mhm.
Um, I think that the album ends a little stronger. I think what kind of man. Um, I like it enough. I gave it a three. But my note says it's a little goofy.
The
It,
chorus the chorus kind of bothers me. It's a little annoying. I got
would you give it?
three.
Okay. Okay. So, and then another thing though, and I could have given maybe this a 3.5. I think The Right Side of My Mind is actually a pretty good song.
I did give it 3.5.
So yeah, and that's just to kind of illustrate the point. Sometimes, because two of these albums were really, really close. We're talking like 0.5% difference between the two, which is, it's effectively a tie, right? And so in my ranking of these four albums, two are going to come in a certain order. One's going to outrank the other, but on any given day, it could have flipped because of a half a point here, half point there. Now, between my number one and number two on this list, there's that much. There's a lot of space, a lot of space.
Okay. What do you think of the overall, sound of the record, the guitar work? There's not as many flashy solos at this point on their records, and this is 1999, so
Yeah.
we're 8 or 9 years removed from Empire, and we're kind of getting further into, the grunge has kind of evolved and taken a bigger part in the rock landscape. What are your impressions with what they're doing guitar? I mean, you're a guitar player. What are your impressions with what they're doing guitar wise on this record? There's nothing really groundbreaking or earth shattering, but they're kind of like a lot of bands. They're kind of taking a step back with some of the soloing.
Yeah,
And
and also they're overall it's less riffy. And so is Here and the Now Frontier.
right, right. So
I,
so if you're going to do that, you really kind of have to have, as you said, the riffs really have to be there. And this is not really a strong riff record, in my view. It's
no,
lacking.
I think if you're it's so to me this is like this and to a large extent Here in the Now Frontier, they're singer-songwriter songs.
Yeah,
Not all of them, but a song to me, a song that's less riff oriented is going to have a much, much stronger vocal hook. I think you can get away with a song that has less of a vocal hook if it's got like a really, really strong riff or an infectious groove. It's like to me, it's got to have one of those three things. And it's like to me, if a song is lacking a big riff, or lacking a real strong groove, or lacking a vocal hook,
yeah,
a really strong vocal hook, then it was like set it aside.
yeah, yeah.
But that's a matter of taste, and to me, what's a strong vocal hook might not be the same as somebody else.
You
Um,
like you like how the record sounds? Do you like the sound of
I
the
think
the
it's to me it sounds like it's to me it sounds a little bit like Here in the Now Frontier, just with more oomph.
Yep.
It has a little. It's a little bigger sounding. I think the drums specifically sound bigger, more open than on Here in the Now Frontier. So
I would agree. I would
yeah,
agree. We use the word open. Should we use that as a segue into Tribe?
yes, Tribe. So Chris DeGarmo does not come back as a full member. But he does come back to help write, and he does play on quite a bit of this as well.
And this is
And
2003, so we're now 4 years after Q2K.
yeah, and this album commercially kind of flopped, but um, I think that there was some anticipation because okay, Chris DeGarmo's got a hand in this, and it's gonna be great. And it's like again, I'm not criticizing the content and the playing on this record, but if anybody says that Chris DeGarmo is like the magic key that makes Queensryche, awesome,
Right.
then why is Here in the Now Frontier slagged by so many people? And why isn't Tribe, loved by people, you know? again, I'm not knocking Chris DeGarmo. It's just more of, it just seems like a lot of that criticism isn't really well thought out. I don't necessarily think.
I don't
Uh,
think a lot of people even. I mean, I think that's a fair point. It's actually an interesting point. It's because you can't
yeah.
really have ways, right?
Well, and if you're you know, if you're a Queensryche fan and you're still watching this and you completely disagree, you know, post a comment. I'd like to hear another, you know, perspective on that. But um, you know, we also get the introduction of Mike Stone into the band here.
Hmm. Hmm.
And his contribution, you know, it does say that he does some guitar. Like if you look at the Wikipedia entry, it says he's like one of the additional musicians. To what extent he's playing guitar, I don't really know. It's quite possible he might have only played on the song he co-wrote with Jeff Tate, which is "Losing Myself."
I think he did the solo. I'm pretty sure that's his solo, which I really
Okay.
like. Yeah,
Uh,
you're right. You don't know how much he played on the record, and that's the only co-write that he got on the album.
yeah.
I thought,
And he also, just for anybody who is not aware, he formerly at this point he had been in Peter Criss's band, just simply known as Chris, and he was on the Cat Number One album.
which is, I'm sure that's high on his resume. When he's handing out a CV, he's got
I
that. Like,
I found a little tiny clip of him talking about playing with Peter Criss, and he's really complimentary about the time he had with Peter Criss. So,
it's hard to find interviews with him. I've watched a couple. They are quite interesting. And we've slagged Mike Stone, in the past. I think sometimes rightfully so, but um, his contributions to Queensryche over the last 20 years really can't be understated because, you can argue that you said some people think that Chris DeGarmo was the engine of Queensryche. So it's like, well, how do you replace a guy like that? Well, they replaced him with different people over the years, but Mike Stone has been kind of a constant, even though it's off and on, over the last 20 years for the band. And, when we saw him a couple months ago, he was with them. So this is kind of his entry point with
well,
Tribe. Even
maybe
though
maybe we can get him on the show.
I'd do that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because Chris and Mike Stone are both involved with Tribe, which is the only time that, to my knowledge, that's ever happened.
That's the only time that's ever happened. That's a good point though, because and also to that point, it marks the exit of Kelly Gray,
Right.
who himself comes back into the Queensryche story later.
Yes.
So Kelly Gray replaces Chris DeGarmo on Q2K, and then Kelly Gray is out. Chris DeGarmo comes back, but kind of in the wings is um, Mike Stone because Chris DeGarmo is not fully back as like an actual full member of the band. He's just there to write and record. So, what do you think about the sound of this album?
I like it. Now let me say it. When the record first came out, I was underwhelmed with it. Now this is 20 some years ago. I mean, as we both were 20 years ago, as most of us were. I was in a different place. I was in a different place. But I thought it was underwhelming when it came out. Just, because naturally for me, when one of these bands puts out a record, I'm sometimes unfairly going to compare it to things they've done in the past that I really, really like. And it's like, okay, Tribe is not Empire. It's not Mindcrime. That's not fair to this record. When it came out, it was a little bit underwhelming. It's kind of lacking in the riffs and the hooks department in a lot of ways. There are some parallels, I think, with Q2K in terms of the songwriting. But this record has really grown on me over the years. It's grown on me quite a bit. And we'll kind of get into that when we do
Yeah.
our deal. But on the whole, I think it's an interesting record because based on all the stuff that's going on personnel wise with these guys, it's kind of like it seems like it's kind of a chaotic period, and I think that it's kind of cool that they still produced a record amongst all that. And I think what you've got here at times doesn't appear to be the most cohesive set of songs, but I think there's some tracks on here that are quite good. And on the whole, like I said, it's grown on me over the past 20 years quite a bit.
Okay. Well, having said that, what would you say are the strong, the high and lows,
Okay.
highs and lows?
My favorite song on the record is the aforementioned Losing Myself. I love Losing Myself. and I gave that 5 stars.
Okay.
I love the solo. I love the verse. I love how the verse kind of explodes into the chorus. It's catchy, it's riffy. I think it's great. I love it.
I see.
Uh,
I hear it a little differently. Although I agree with you, I do like the song. I don't think of it as very riffy. It's very to me, it's very simple.
it,
And in terms of it's just chords.
it
Uh,
is.
Down, ding, 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 but I think it's a good example of a song that has a very strong vocal hook. And I think that it's indicative of what potentially could have happened maybe if Mike Stone had been more consistently with the band. Although it's interesting because he ends up being one of the main writers on Operation Mindcrime 2, which is, I don't want to get into the next episode, but the next episode starts with that album. And the Jason Slater is the producer, and he's also a big part of the writing on that record. So it's hard to know, like, because we don't have any other songs that's just Mike Stone, Jeff Tate. Like this is the one, as far as I know, as far as I'm aware. So, but I agree with you. I like the song. You gave it what, 5? Okay, see, I gave it a 3.5.
Um,
I like it. I think it's above an above average song. I like the song. I wouldn't skip the song. Um, but it's not my favorite on the record though.
Other songs on the album I really like. These are 4 star songs. Open, which I almost gave a 4.5 to. I love Open.
Yeah.
Uh, I love the title track, Tribe. I think that song's really, really cool. Um, different feel from a
Hmm.
drumming perspective. It's really cool and has some weird kind of chordal things going on with the guitars. Some interesting chords they're playing. Um, Strong vocal performance. I like Tribe a lot. And then kind of an I like Doing Fine. I love Doing Fine. I give that a 4 stars. It's an interesting way to end a record. Um, it's not a really strong sonically. It's not like a big bold song to end a record with. Um, I like the vocal a lot on it. I like the guitar on it. I think it's a good arrangement, and those 4 songs would be my favorite songs on the record. Um, Losing Myself, Open, Tribe, Doing Fine, and if I had to give some honorable mentions, I would give an honorable mention to Rhythm of Hope, which I think is a nice song. I gave it 3.5 stars.
Okay. So what's the lowest point for you?
Um, I didn't give anything lower than a 3, and I gave threes to Falling Behind,
Excuse me.
the Great Divide, and Blood. So if I had to pick one of those 3, probably The Great Divide would be my least favorite, although I think it's a passable song. It's a little bit ho hum for me.
I gave The Great Divide and Rhythm of Hope both 2.5 because to me they're just kind of boring.
I can see that.
I just it's those are to me those are songs that were kind of like wow it's kind of like it's Q2K again or it's Here and There
Yeah.
Frontier again. It's like I kind of felt like some of the songs on these 3 albums could kind of interchange a little bit and um but having said that, my favorite songs on the record are Open. I think Open's a great song. And it's like Losing Myself. Open is not a real riffy song, but I think it has a really strong vocal melody on it. I love the chorus of Open. I think it's a great song.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I agree. Of course,
I
it's
give, but I gave it a 4. I give it a 4. Nothing on this album gets more than a 4 for me. Um, and I gave The Art of Life a 4 as well. There's a little spoken word thing in there, but I think the which I'm not a fan of spoken word stuff usually. Um, but I think the guitar work is really cool. I love kind of the complementary kind of way the song is balanced, in terms of the panning of the instrumentation. It's dark musically. So I really like The Art of Life quite a lot. Um, yeah, you mentioned the title track, Tribe, right, as a strong point. Yeah, I gave that a 3. It's pretty different. I mean, I kind of like it, but again, it has that spoken word element doesn't really work for me as much in that.
I'm
So
not, I'm not a big spoken word guy either, but I like it. It's dark, and I think the instrumentation while he's doing that and how it builds and leads into the next part of the song it's just differently from like a percussive standpoint.
yeah,
It's
and
really,
I would agree with that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
pretty cool.
I think overall the album actually sounds, if you compare it sonically to Q2K or Here and Now Frontier, I think it sounds the best of those three. Um, I think that the song Open is actually one of the best songs from this era of the band.
I
Um,
almost I almost
maybe
gave it a
maybe
5.
accepting things from Promised Land.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't give it a stronger grade. I could have given it a 4.5. I could have easily given Open a 5 because it is one. I agree with you. It's one of the stronger songs from this period of the band.
Okay, so you want to just go ahead and get into the ranking of this?
Yeah,
Uh,
let's do this. Let's do this.
okay, so I got to reorganize these here.
And
Ready to go. I am ready to go. Are you ready to go?
okay, I'm ready.
All right. So in fourth place for me from this second set of Queensryche albums, in the number 4 place for me is Q2K.
I got Q2K.
Tilt
This for me
that a little bit so we can see it a little in the.
there's kind of a glare there.
There you go. Yeah. So we
67.27%.
57.27%.
That's
Um, yeah. So we both agree. So Q2K. In the number 3 spot for me was Tribe.
this is a surprise, folks. I got Promised Land. This was a shocker. This was 72.73%, so it's 5 points higher than Q2K.
This was 63.
Okay.
So it's, about 5.5 points higher. Okay. And the number 3 spot for me was Here in the Now Frontier.
Same here. And
Okay.
Brian, this is 0.13 higher than Promised Land. So as you can see, a half a star would have changed it.
Okay.
It's
For
that
me,
close.
this was 63.57. So this was only just less than 0.5% different than Tribe. So those two could have been really and honestly, even Q2K with just a few songs being like a 3.5 rather than a 3, that could have changed. So
Mhm.
those three are all pretty close, but to me, really the closest are these two. So then the number 1 spot for me by a mile, by a
That's
mile is
funny.
Promised Land.
This was a shocker for me. So this is 73%. So the difference between this and number 3 for me is 27 hundredths of 1%.
So there's those so the top 3 albums out of these 4 for you are really, really, really close.
Yeah. Like a half star here or there changes everything.
Okay. Well, for me, Promised Land is 85.5%. It's over 20 points difference, or 20%. It's a 20% gap between that and the number 2.
Well, I'm going to wager a guess that by the time we wrap this whole thing up, all the Queensryche stuff, that's probably going to be in your top 4 or 5 Queensryche records of all time.
We'll
That's a
find out.
We'll find out. That's a very, very good score. And I can't argue with that. When I came into this, I thought Promised Land would come in at number 1 for me in this group. I thought Q2K would come in at number 4. I thought Tribe would be a little bit higher than Here in the Now Frontier, but I was shocked that Promised Land didn't score a little bit higher. But like I said, I could go back and give Bridge a 5. I could give
Mhm.
Promise 5. I could give Damaged a 5.
Yeah,
So
but that's not where it was when you actually did the grading, and that's kind of what we do this based on, and that's what makes it kind of interesting. For me, I knew going in that Promised Land would be number one out of these four. Mike, the thing for me was I had no idea really how Here in the Now Frontier Tribe and Q2K would pan out. That's where it was interesting to me. So, um, yeah, okay, well. We've wrapped up part two. We have two more parts of the Queensryche series as it relates to the chunks of albums. And then we'll have a final episode of part five where we aggregate the totals and do all of the, rank all of the catalog, kind of a summary episode. So next up, Operation Mindcrime 2, American Soldier, Dedicated to Chaos, Frequency Unknown. And then after that, the self-titled, not EP, excuse me, the self-titled album from 2013, Conditioned Human, Verdict, and Digital Noise Alliance. All those coming up. So, at any rate, we do a project called Underlords of the Overworld. Our bass player writes stories that kind of created what we call the Underlords Universe, like an Underlords fictional universe, and it all kind of intertwines. So if anybody's interested in checking that stuff out, we'll put links below. And I don't know, Brent, you got anything else you want to say?
no, just if you like Queensryche and you happen upon this video and you think we're crazy or you think we're on point, let us know in the
Yeah,
comments, which I'd love to
yeah.
hear from.
Like, subscribe, whatever, yada yada, blah 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 blah. Okay, take care.
All right, see ya.